I really thought I would be the first one voted off because I couldn't do a lot of the physical challenges at first, and they were all my colleagues were going hiking 3 hour, and I was barely able to do anything. And one day, I think 4 weeks in, I woke up, I forgot to put my CPAP on. I realized I didn't need it, and then one day I went for a hike, and 3 hours later, I came back still alive.
If you've been watching, you know that I take my ingredients very seriously, but there are 3 companies that I have found that I absolutely love. Check the description for discount codes. Hello, welcome to my show. This is Beyond Biggest Loser, where I interview my fellow biggest losers to see what was the show like and what is life like today. Today, I have Dr. Jeff and his wife Doris here to tell the story of his experience on season 2 of The Biggest Loser. Welcome, you guys.
Welcome. It's so great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. I have to say, I'm a little bit fangirling because I was season 3. And so your season inspired me to apply. And I remember when I was auditioning, I went to the Mall of America to do one of those open casting call things. And I saw some of the cast there and I was just like starstruck. Do you have any? Well, let's start with how did you get into a place where you would even consider applying for a show like this? Like, what was life like?
So, a couple things. First, both my parents suffered from obesity, and but I actually was very thin growing up. So thin, my mother was Swedish. She used to give me money when I go play basketball on the way home to go to. There was a famous ice cream parlor, Peppermint Park Ice Cream, and she'd want me to go get a milkshake because in her culture, I was too thin. And I played sports. I played baseball in college. I really maintained a very healthy weight and active lifestyle until medical school. In my first year of medical school, I'm sorry, in residency, actually. I was working about 100 hours or more a week. I was on call every 3 nights, 36 hours straight. And I think besides being too tired when I got home to exercise, I developed very unhealthy eating habits because, you're up all night. They open the hospital cafeteria at 3 in the morning. You can have anything you want to eat. Well, there's nobody making healthy salads or sandwiches. It was hot dogs and hamburgers sitting in the grease since lunchtime and all the
So
chocolate,
true.
soda, candy that you can eat. And we'd all get together complaining who had the worst night. And then the next day before going home, the drug reps would come with pizza, Chinese food, a lot of unhealthy foods that I would eat. And what happened is I developed unhealthy. I would eat to stay awake. I would help eat to calm me down. It really literally became a drug for me. And I would eat, my wife would say, "What's that in your mouth?" I would eat unconsciously and not even realize it. And so that combined with poor sleep habits from being up all night and lack of physical activity, I gained 70 pounds my first year of residency, but I was still active and I didn't really feel um, unhealthy. And it wasn't until years later that I started to fall asleep driving home, fall asleep sometimes in the middle of lectures. Huh?
Not driving home when you waited for if the light was red.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
People would
mean,
come up to me and say, "Are you okay?" I'd fall asleep at a red light.
not while
Yeah, and then
driving,
one
just
time I actually fell asleep in a room with a patient and realized I had a problem. But I went to my physician, and instead of trying to get me to help lose weight, he just said, "Oh, you probably need a sleep study." And I got on CPAP, and of course, it helped me with my sleep. But I looked like a fighter pilot, sounded like Darth Vader. Not very romantic, and really, again, sort of ignored my own problem until it started to take other effects on me in terms of my physical ability to. My daughters are all, I have 4 daughters. I affectionately refer to as 4 weddings of my funeral, but they were all big athletes. And I used to, run with them and play soccer and do all these things. And I just wasn't able to do those things anymore. And it affected my, my blood sugar. And I was developing medical conditions that really were affecting my quality of life. And I think it finally, I was recommending me to go get, at the time, bypass surgery. The surgeon who did Al Roker's surgery, and I had developed blood clots in my legs and a lot of other complications. And so I had 3 referrals to have gastric bypass, to have my veins stripped, um, and my ankle fused because it had gotten so bad I could hardly walk up and down stairs. And what happened, we watched Law and Order
Sweet.
SVU. I think it was on Thursday nights, and they said coming this season to NBC, The Biggest Loser. And I looked at my wife. I said, reality TV's gone so far. Now they got a show about who's the biggest loser,
Mhm.
and that's what I thought it was about. So we never watched it. And then at the end of the season of Law and Order SVU, it said, log on to NBC for your chance to be on the second season of The Biggest Loser. And it showed scenes. And I said, oh my God, it's a weight loss show. So one night I logged on and it said you had to send in a video while you wanted to be on the show. And it was due, I think, I don't know, it was due like the next day or something. And then we were at a Christmas party and I told my wife about it. She says, we should do a video. And I'm like, I think it's due today. And she goes, so what? And we were at a Christmas party and we were driving home. The only thing she had in her car was a CD about, all the biggest hits, of that year. And one of them was
Sir
Dr. Sir
Lancelot.
Lancelot,
So
Baby Got Back. So I wrote a skit in about 10 minutes and with my daughters to Baby Got Back.
called it Doctors Got
And the
Back.
problem is, and then I was talking about why I want to be on the show, the what it was called,
Big Fat
the
Loser.
Big Fat Loser. I forgot the name of the show. So the
Oh.
whole video, I'm saying why I want to be on the Big Fat Loser. And then we sent it in, and 2 weeks later, it came back insufficient postage.
Oh,
I threw it in the garbage. I didn't know she put more postage and sent it back. And then a couple of weeks later, I get a phone call driving home, and it said, "We're from Three Ball Productions," and I'm like, "Oh, very funny," because I do women's health, and I thought they were making fun about three balls. But anyway, turns out I guess they all like playing basketball, and they said we want to audition you for The Biggest Loser, and I really thought it was a prank call because I said, "How's that possible?" I threw out
Mhm.
the thing, and then she told me she had sent it back. And I kept making excuses for not going on the show. I had my 4 young daughters. I had a job that was very demanding. I had patients, 3-month waiting list with patients. And one night I wrote to all my colleagues about this offer I'd gotten to go on this show and about how my health, I wasn't feeling healthy anymore. And they all wrote back. It's funny when you give people permission, all of a sudden everybody tells you how worried you were going to drop dead at work. And some of them were like, don't go on the show. They're going to exploit you. We'll cover you. Go down to Pritikin or something. But they all wanted me to do something. And they all loved me very much. I mean, I have a wonderful work family. But it's just funny. Nobody really said anything until I gave them permission. And then
Mm.
like everybody was like, you got to do something. So I decided to go on the show. And my wife had a party for me. And I said, oh, I'll be back in a weekend because, they're not going to take me. And they flew me out to Beverly Hills in a hotel. And literally, I was there, I think, almost 7 days. They didn't let us leave the room because they didn't want us to see, I guess, other people
Contestant.
auditioning. You had to call and get permission for someone to come take you to get something to eat. And I didn't understand the show. So I actually lost 30 pounds before I went on the show because I didn't get it. It was I had never seen the first season. So and so in the room for the whole week, I'm doing like sit-ups and jogging back and forth in this room. It's like I'm on sequestered and jury. And then they bring me in for the audition and they go, oh, you really got to excite them, they're, and I walk in and the first thing the guy said, he's from Brooklyn. I said, oh, I'm from the city too. I still say, what's up? And he goes, how much weight do you want to lose? I said, I don't have a goal weight. I just want to be healthy and be able to active with my kid. And you could tell he was pissed. He says, everybody has a goal weight. I said, I don't have a goal weight. I don't have a number. I just want to be able to be active and healthy and maybe, shop in a regular clothing store. And I could tell I thought that's it. They're sending me home. And then in the middle of the night, they came and videoed me. The phone and told me I was going to be a contestant. And then they woke us up at 4 something in the morning. They put us in a van. We weren't allowed to talk to each other. And they took us out to I think it was called the Hummingbird Ranch. And basically we got out of the car and they had us walking up and down the hill for about 3 hours. Just, I guess that's the opening scene. And one of the contestants they had to call an ambulance because he was breaking, and it turned out to be Matt, who actually won my season. And I'm a women's health specialist and I went to an all boy military school. So I just always gravitate to women. So I'm hanging out with all the girls talking to them. And then of course they split us up, men versus women. Little did I know. So if I was trying to be tactical, I wasn't doing a very good job. But and then I met Carolyn Ray, who was the host of the show. And her and I hit it off right away. Her father was an OBGYN and I'm a reproductive health specialist. And so her and I hit it off. But I turned out I was the oldest. I was the
Second
second heaviest and
second
by
heaviest.
far the sickest. And I really thought, I'm not going to last on the show. And fortunately, I promised my wife, she said, whatever you do, I read about the show, don't do any temptations. So I always refused to do that. And I made the competition about myself. And I think I built up a lot of trust and friendships, friends that, from the show that I'm still good friends with. And I think for that reason, I gained a lot of respect from my colleagues and stay and the fellow contendants stayed on the show. I think I was the fourth. Yep,
The
the last. Yeah, I was one of the final four before I got voted
thought
off.
entry.
So anyway, so that's basically how I wound up on the show, making a short story long.
You ended up being cut just before the finale, just
Yeah,
before the
yeah,
final.
and
Andrea
yeah,
was
I made it to the second to last week before the finale. Yep.
Me too.
Oh, yeah. So I never dream. I really thought I would be the first one voted off because I couldn't do a lot of the physical challenges at first, and all my colleagues were going hiking 3 hour, and I was barely able to do anything. And one day, I think 4 weeks in, I woke up. I forgot to put my CPAP on. I realized I didn't need it, and then one day I went for a hike, and 3 hours later, I came back still alive. So I was starting to be able to do things. And then one of the contestants had a pair of, they never let us know our weight except for at the week. And one day he just, here, why don't you try these jeans on? And I hadn't worn a pair of jeans in I don't know how long. And so it really started to hit me that it was I was starting to improve my health. So.
We were also at the Hummingbird Ranch and we also had Caroline Ray. So I like
really
those early seasons. But what I didn't like about the early seasons was there was still a lot of like production things. Like later on, they had which actually maybe you were early enough, were the trainers there very often during your season?
No, not at all. So one of the things, because as a physician, I went home is a lot of it was very adaptable to home. They had three machines. They had a treadmills, they had elliptical, and a exercise bike. That was most of the equipment we used. And then, of course, when the trainers were there, that's when we did the weights and other things. I don't know if you know the story about the Hummingbird Ranch, but it was the
was
owner of I forgot most of the radio stations. I forgot the name of the
West
Westwood One, and his wife. He had bought that ranch because she wanted to have an equestrian ranch there. And then they got divorced, and I think out of spite, he signed this agreement with NBC to let him use the ranch. And so whenever she came, she's like, "If you go near the horses, you're off the show." She wouldn't let us use the swimming pool. It was really kind of uncomfortable there a lot, especially whenever she was there. But yeah, we would cook our own food. There was no chefs. We would make a list of stuff that groceries, they would get it, and we would cook our own food. And most of the exercise equipment was stuff that you could easily have at home. And the trainers we would only see, I don't know, a few times a week. So again, a lot of it was stuff that we did on our own, helping each other and things that I was still able to do once I got home, that, not fancy equipment or things like that, or fancy foods or not having a chef so a lot of it, at least potentially, was adaptable once I got home.
Do you remember about how much you were eating and what were you eating?
On the show?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I remember very well because Dr. Huizinga and I became friends. And, well, first of all, he tried to talk me out of going on the show. He said, you have a bad leg. My leg was very bad. And he goes,
your reputation.
you're nationally known and as a physician in women's health. He says, wouldn't it be embarrassing for you to go on that show? I said, look at me now. I'm embarrassed in front of my patients. I said, no. And so I begged him to put me on. He was very worried that I wouldn't be able to do it. And again, part of it was because I never saw what it was like. If I did, I probably wouldn't have gone on the show. But him and I became friends, and he kept complaining that I wasn't eating enough. And I said, no, every morning I make a 4 egg beater omelet with veggies and like a low fat ham. And I always like to eat before I exercise. Everybody was still sleeping, and I would make breakfast because I like to feel like I was burning off my breakfast. Other people couldn't do that because it would make them nauseous. So I would make like a 4 egg omelet. And if anybody else I would make it with them. And then I would exercise. And then I would make wasa crackers. My mother was Swedish. So it's like a
I make
25
those
calorie
too.
cracker. And I would put, fat free mayo and some kind of cold cuts or hummus, and I would cut up I made fresh pickles out of cucumbers and things like that. But I ate a big salad and like these wasa crackers with cold cuts for lunch, and then for dinner I would make either a lot of fish or I made a chili that everybody loved so much that we would wind up having it
Turkey
every
chili.
week. It was Dr. Jeff's famous turkey chili. We would have it before the weigh-in, which was embarrassing because everybody would be, tooting by the weigh-in. When you have 4 bean chili, you can imagine. But yeah, so I remember, and I felt full. I was eating a lot, and he was so worried because all we did was take a piece of paper and we had to write out what we ate and the calories. We had to look it up in a book, and then you would throw it in
Hmm.
the pill, at the table. There was like a salad bowl, and you would just throw in your list on an index card what you ate. And I guess he would look at it every week, and he said, "You're not eating enough calories." And I'm like, I'm eating a lot of food. It was just the quality of the food. So yeah, I remember very well. And then once in a while, I would have one of those 40-calorie fudge pops as a treat.
Hmm.
But I never felt hungry, and always had a lot of variety of food.
And did your chili make the cookbook?
Don't get me started. So yes, it made the cookbook, and she put it in with a recipe that I don't know where she got it. It was not even close to my recipe. I sent it to her. I wrote it all out. And next thing I know, she publishes it, and it's got olives and which nothing
And a
personal. All
ton
you
of
love.
wasn't it like
It
a
was
lot of
like
pepper?
it was crazy. It was not even close to what I made, and I made her change it for the second. I was so upset, and I was like, how's that even possible? I sent you everything." So yes, it made it in there, but that for anybody who tried it and didn't like it, trust me, it
It
wasn't
wasn't
mine.
it wasn't his.
I
Wasn't
don't know what edition I got, but the one that I had was so flavorful.
Yeah, that
I
was
think it
hopefully
had
the second one.
cilantro.
No, I don't.
No, onions. I don't
Oh,
know.
onions,
All I know
definitely. Are
is
you kidding me? I
that's
love
what I
them.
ate like every single day.
Oh, yeah. So, anyway, but, yeah, I never felt hungry, and like I said, it was, pretty much that we started, eating dinners together, but for the most part, you made your own food.
Yeah, but you made that recipe on the show because I would get phone calls from
Oh, yeah.
contestants, wives that were voted off, and they would ask me for his like secret recipe for this
Yeah.
chili. And I'm like, it must be so secretive because I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, just one night, I just looked around what
Yeah.
there was and put it all together, and anyway.
That's awesome that you guys ate together. I came on like later, and so nobody wanted to eat with me.
Oh
If they were
no.
going to feed me
Oh,
anything, they were going to put
well.
fat in it.
Well, no, I have to. So the biggest problem, like I said, I had gotten to be friends with all the women, and then all of a sudden we're guys versus girls. I'm like, oh. But the one thing I would say is, for the most part, except the first guy that we voted off, we really became close and very honest, and really helped each other.
Mhm.
And several of the women, the same thing. When there was I think they went to Vegas, and some people chose to gamble and lose their coach for a week, which I wouldn't even go near that, any of the temptations.
Oh, it
But
pissed them off. You
yeah,
and Joanne and
and
Bob were pissed.
Matt from our show was helping a lot of the women because they had lost their trainer for a week. So I was, I think I try to convey to people, this show is going to be on forever. I mean, in memory, I wanted to go home being very proud of how I conducted myself, and I was. And I think for most people, they were there for the right reason. I think it's hard
Mhm.
when it became a survivor like, in the competition. And then I just never got wrapped up in that, and I think that's why I lasted so long. And I think most people, yes, maybe they got into that competitive part, but I think most people can look at the show and not be embarrassed on how they acted, which I'm happy for them.
I feel like on our season, they really went for personalities that would make good TV, not always in a good way.
Well, the guy, one of the first person we voted off, you could tell he was clearly he really didn't need to lose a lot of weight. He was anyway. It wouldn't have taken much screening to know that he was not appropriate for the show. And it was clear to me that, yes, I'm sure they did it for that reason. And probably the first girl who got voted off. But most of the contestants were, I think, there for the right reason, who had a compelling story. But yeah, I think the first two definitely were for TV.
I really love most of your cast. Like I message them often. I follow a lot of them. I've been watching, Susie and Matt's journey, and I hope they'll come on to my show too.
Oh, me
But
too. Yeah.
I would love to know, could you tell us? Because here's the thing, people, even people who figured out something that works for them, they still think, but what if I could have had what they have on The Biggest Loser? And so I like to share, like, what was it really like? Because I think really what we did on The Biggest Loser is really what we're being told at the doctor's office. And it doesn't work long term. We'll go into that. But so what were the exercises like? Like, were you working out 20 hours a day?
Yeah. So I think the thing that the show taught me as a physician and probably the medical community is that you can push people who are overweight to exercise much more than we used to tell. I mean, I still recommend to patients start low, go slow, because there's no better negative reinforcement than getting injured. But I never would think to have people push themselves as much as they did on the show. I think the difference is it's just not realistic. You cannot. I was exercising, so I would make my breakfast and then I would exercise an hour before the trainers got there, and then when they would train with us, and then I would go on a 3-hour hike. I would put my earbuds in, take a stick because there were rattlesnakes trying to warn you, but if you had your earbuds in, they're like, "You're not listening to me. I'm going to bite you." But I would go for these 3-hour hikes out in the mountains, and then at night exercise. So, 4 to 6 hours of exercise. That's just not. And
Feasible.
my job, I'm work, 60, 70 hours a week. That's just not going to be realistic. So the duration was not realistic, but and in the beginning, I could not use the treadmill. My ankle hurt too much. I only used the bike and the elliptical. And very quickly, when I first met Jillian, that's a whole other, story. I could use a lot of 4-letter words to describe her, but at first she just didn't get it. But when she realized how bad my ankle was, she really adapted a lot of things to me. And I really appreciated that because otherwise I just would never have lasted. And just being able to slowly build, up my capacity to do more, that really helped, you know, me to be able to expand my workout. But the one thing that, is not realistic is being able to work out 4 to 6 hours a day. And I think that's what one of the things that affect people when they went back home is their metabolic rate, just dropped dramatically. But the one thing that it did that on the show, I did eat a lot and I bought my own, I mean, we ordered food and I made my own food. And except for one salad dressing that they only had in California, everything I ate on the show, I was able to buy in my local supermarket, like everything. Things that I didn't know existed that, I turned out to like that were healthier alternatives. So that part was realistic. It's really time. And the other thing is I only had to focus on myself. I had 4 daughters, they all had different activities we were constantly doing. I had patients that are very, with what I do, I was on call a lot. I worked, probably 70 hours a week and didn't really make a lot of time for myself. And I think the poor sleep habits, lack of exercise,
Mm.
and that addiction to food put me in a bad cycle. And I think being on the show where I had no contact with my family, except maybe once a week if I was
Mhm.
lucky. I had to there was no TV. I mean, there was nothing to do there, but
Focus on yourself.
focus on myself. And that is the one thing that's very hard for people, especially a lot of the women in my that are patients of mine tend to put themselves last and their family first. And
Mhm.
not realize that if you don't help yourself, it's hard to help others. And that was probably the biggest thing that the show did for me is it forced me to focus on myself. And again, the second was the time to be able to exercise the amount that I did. And that those were the two things that just would never have happened if I didn't go on the show.
I feel like there were definitely some positives. And personally, I feel like I am so blessed that I got that opportunity. And one of the things was I thought a little bit less of myself when I was bigger. And then when I got smaller, I still felt the same about myself. And I had to come to grips with, like, I'm a human being. I am worthy. Did you have any emotional things that you had to overcome after losing all this weight?
Guilt. I think I think the biggest thing when I came up, my wife sacrificed so much for me to be on this show. I always said to my kids, I'll never say no to books or sports. And so our scholastic bill was always ridiculous. But my kids, everyone thought we wanted a boy. We never tried for a boy. We really didn't. And I could not have been more proud of having my daughters, but they were all very active but they all signed up for different sports. And my wife didn't want them to feel deprived because I went on the show. So she took them, she did the work of two parents taking on all the activities. And so she sacrificed a lot for me. So when I came on the show, I wanted to give her the opportunity that I had. And so I try to get her to join gyms. I really try to force things on her because I felt guilty that I got an opportunity and that she sacrificed so much. And it actually, I think, backfired in a lot of ways. So we did, as a family, start eating healthier and doing more active. I mean, there are a lot of good that came, and I think it helped me be a better role model of my daughters. But I think for my wife,
Well, it was my birthday, and
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, let's get you a gym membership." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not my birthday. Not exactly what I want for my birthday. Oh, I'll get you this. I'll get you this exercise." Yeah, no, that wasn't what I wanted
yeah,
for my birthday.
yeah, and just not meeting her at on her terms of when she was ready to do something, and that was hard. And but I think a lot of my fellow contestants had it worse because I came home and my wife immediately wanted us to start eating healthy and doing things together as a family, and we
He
did
did the
that.
cooking, so
But she really supported that, and my family, we made a shopping every week. We made a menu, and we made a shopping list off the menu, and I took my daughter shopping with me to get stuff, and we started doing, like, our vacations would be like whitewater raft. It would be much more physical things, and we bought soccer nets, goals on the front yard, and at 11 o'clock at night, we'd have like the United Nations at our house. My kids would go on Facebook and invite all their friends to play. And I bought lights for the front and just so many things that I think to this day, my kids are better off because of that. So, but there are a lot of things about the show, that I wish were different. But I think compared to what I read on the alumni page and in the news.
Mm,
If I had to do it over again, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't blame the show for, what's unfortunately our bodies do in terms of our metabolic. I don't. The two things that I wish were different on the show is one, I wish they would send people home with some counseling or help because unlike me, so many of my fellow contestants went back to a lifestyle. They didn't have the social support that I had. I had my best friend, my soulmate, and my kids to support me. I had my fellow family physicians to support. Everybody was very supportive of
mm.
me. Some of my colleagues went home and had people who unconsciously or sabotaged that, and I really feel, or they didn't have a lot of the opportunities that I had, and I really felt or had overcome a lot more than just the addiction to food, had a lot of other psychologic issues, and I think they didn't get the help that I wish the show had offered when they went home.
And
Because I
that
think,
hasn't so gym membership was only to 24-hour
yeah,
fitness,
yeah,
and
there
they
was
didn't have
just
any in the
right.
East
Yeah,
Coast, and
I just think look, I think we learned one thing they learned from the show that they didn't know, and is that unfortunately, when you lose that much weight, your body is a thermostat and tries to force itself back.
Mhm.
And that's the big problem. So you can lose that weight, but your body is always going to try to force yourself back. And that's not a fault of the show, but that's just reality. But
mm,
if you look at most of my former contestants that I know who have kept the weight off, most of them they're like um, physical trainers. They're doing stuff where their whole lifestyle is still
mm,
surrounded similar to what when they were in other words, they're able to exercise and do things where everything's around health,
mm,
and I salute them for that. I wish more people could, but those who went back to their lifestyle that was more sedentary and didn't have that social support very quickly regained their weight. And I just think the show maybe would have had more people with a longer term success, not
mhm.
a lot, but more if they had provided that social support. And I hated the survivor. I wish they kept everyone on the show. And in the end, yeah, you want to have people vote at the end. I just felt bad sending people home who really had not, um, who really would have benefited from staying. I know I did. I tried to go home. I tried to get voted off when my friend Pete was getting voted off because I thought he deserved to stay. And when they didn't vote me off, I said, "Well, you're going to regret it." And I really pushed myself, and I think I won a couple of weeks, and it helped me to stay. But I think of all the contestants who got voted off before me, who probably would have benefited, maybe not long term, but who I think didn't have the same environment when I came home that they did.
Yeah, I think if we could do it over again, you probably disagree with this, but I'd have people eating more meat, and then it would be a cap of you lose 1 pound a week. That's it. Because then your body maybe doesn't fight against you so hard, and you don't have the loose skin and you don't have the injury. But we didn't know, because I think in the show we were doing exactly what most doctors actually say to do to this day: move more and eat less. And so I don't
Mhm.
think that they were doing something intentional. I think
Yeah,
it's actually great that the experiment played out on TV to prove you cannot starve yourself and run marathons to get skinny. It will not work long term.
yeah. I will tell you though, I did not eat less. I ate a lot of volume. I ate healthier, but I didn't eat less, and I ate a lot of meat. I mean, I ate more fish, but I ate a lot of meat, just leaner meat. I think, but when I look at the volume of food that I ate, it was and definitely never felt hungry. I mean, part of it was sleeping better and exercising that helped my curb my appetite, but I think volume wise, it was just the quality of the food I ate. And, I have a daughter. When I came home, she said, "Dad, I want to be a vegetarian." And I said, "You know what? If you want to be a lacto ovo vegetarian, I will support you. I'm going to turn you into a pescatarian. But if you want to be a vegan, move out now." I said, just not going to work in our house. And to this day, she is. And I'm very proud of that. And I think there are many ways to eat healthy, and that can include meat. I think I've learned with my patients that they all want to try different diets. And I say the diet is the one you're going to stay, that works is the one you're going to stay on. If you look, most diets don't have good data after a year. Why? Because most people can't stay on them. The people that you see who are on Atkins, or they're on South Beach, or they're on whatever, who do well, it's because they didn't have to make major changes. It's the ones who have to really feel like it's a four-letter word that usually it's not sustainable. So I usually support, people making more light. I like Mediterranean because you're trying to make adjustments rather than a diet. And it's more permissive. I don't like things that are restrictive. I think you're right. And I think if you like meat, that's great. Maybe I can just get you to get a healthier, leaner meat, or do other things to help fill your plate. But I think when you help patients individualize something that works for them, and I take care of a lot of patients who are from different cultures. It's just forcing American diet or a certain diet is not realistic, and helping them find alternatives, um, that's within the same, and also that they can buy at their local grocery store, because showing them something at Trader Joe's that they don't, they're in a food desert, and in my inner city, there's no Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. They have to be able to buy it at their local bodega, and it's possible to do that. It's just you have to be more creative.
So, Doris, did you ever struggle with your weight too?
I did. I actually lost, 60 pounds in
Wow.
me how many years? Quite a few
Yeah, but
years,
you did.
but I did.
I bet you
You
did.
just reminded me. The one thing that I was spared that you weren't, probably, is that would have killed me on the show, was the product placements. Did you have a
Yeah,
lot
we
of
did.
those?
We had a lot of Jenny-O
So,
turkey and
yeah.
Jello, and
Some
yeah.
Well,
Caesar
so
gum or
what
something.
happened is they tried to get Jillian couldn't cook to save her life, and they had her doing something for Jello. I can't remember what she was supposed to make, and we tortured her so bad they never could use the. So I think they never did product placements on our show because we humiliated her when she was trying to do something with Jello. I can't remember what it was, but after that, every season it was not even, it was so blatant. It was,
Mhm.
I think that would have killed me. Doing that.
Now, I have a question. A lot of people think that I've spoken to, that you guys had chefs on the show, like that the food
Or
was, yeah,
dietitians, or yeah.
they said something, "Oh, but someone's cooking their food." I'm like, "No, that nobody was." So I heard that a lot.
Yeah, we had a dietitian come one time and she talked about fiber for like a half hour and that was it. I mean, I think maybe having someone come on about when you go back, oh, where are you from? Or what are your foods that you usually eat with your family? Here's some creative things you might want to do, when you're in a rush. I wish they had done that, but no, we had a dietitian come for a half hour of fiber and that was it. We never There was a chef. If you won, I think Susie won, and she got to pick one of her fellow contestants to have a chef for the week while we all had to order from a menu from a restaurant.
Mm.
That was it. We never had no stinking chef. So
Yeah. So, how long were you gone for? Do you remember how long the filming
sure.
was?
So they told me I would be gone about 10 weeks. I figured a weekend. But what happened was they came to us, I think I forgot what week it was, and they said we were supposed to be on in the summer, and they showed our pilot at Radio City Music Hall, and everybody loved it so much that they were going to bump Fear Factor and put us on in the fall schedule. And everybody's jumping up and down. I'm like, oh, that's cool. More people are going to watch the show. And then they go, well, we need to extend it by another 4 weeks.
They need more episodes.
And I went up to the producers after they announced it. And I said, I can't do that. I have a job I have to get back to. And then one
They
of the
started
other,
scheduling patients for you.
yeah, they had already started scheduling patients for me. And they said, "Oh, no worries. We spoke to your chair, and he said no problem." And they never had spoken to. They lied. They
Oh,
And I would get the
So she was getting nasty phone calls from the medical director saying, he's got patients booked. I had a 3-month waiting list, and I had patients all booked. And meanwhile, I'm not back. And it turns out they had never called my office to tell them. So that created a lot of undue stress on my wife, who couldn't communicate this to me.
hmm.
Uh,
I spoke with an attorney friend, and he
yeah,
gave me some verbiage
yeah, it
to
was
say.
horrible for her. But anyway, I wound up being on 13 weeks.
All right. And so, was each episode, like, for us, a week on TV could have been 2 or 3 or however long weeks to actually film it. Was it the same with you
Yeah,
guys, or was it pretty close?
most of them were like a week to 10 days. They were, somewhat on, but there may have been a few that went on like a 3 extra day, that weren't a full or a little more than a week, but I don't remember it going more than that. Maybe there may have been one that was 2 weeks. I don't remember, but certainly not longer than that.
And so you return home, and how was it between the show and the finale? How did you keep up with this so that you could work and go back to real life and get ready for the finale?
It was very hard because I got home and I got home. Everybody was like amazed to see my wife had this. Everybody at my house. It was so emotional when I saw my daughters. I mean, I just came, I walked in and I said, Daddy's home. And my daughters were crying. I was crying. I think they were, shocked to see how I looked. And then all my
Oh, he
colleagues
was
were
a
there.
movie star. He looked
Yeah.
just like a movie
And
star.
anyway, it was all emotional. And then about, I don't know, 5 minutes later, okay, we're going to redo it, reshoot. I said, hurry up and wait, but I had to go back to work the next day. I'm sorry. The next day, my daughter played hooky and we went to
Oh
Kohl's
my God, that was
and
so much fun.
ShopRite. And it was, I mean, I hadn't been to a regular clothing store in, I don't know.
Forever.
Yeah.
It was
And
so much fun shopping
shopping and
regular
fitting
sizes.
stuff on a regular size. And then we went to ShopRite, and I said, except for that one salad dressing, I was able to buy all the foods that, so that was fun. But then I went to work the next day, and I worked as a camp doctor for 2 weeks a year. That was half my vacation, so that my kids could go for free. And I came back, and my chair was like how great I looked, and then he was telling me how tough things had been because I work for the state, and they had cutbacks, and how glad I was there because I generate a lot of revenue for them. And I said, well, that's good, but in a couple of weeks I have 2 weeks vacation. I'm taking my kids to this camp. And he's like, well, you can't. You've been gone 13 weeks. And I said, well, I'll make it up. I'll do extra call. I'll do whatever, but I'm not making my kids suffered already not having me. My daughter didn't have her sweet 16. My wife suffered. And I said, I'm sorry, but I'm doing this. And I said, otherwise, I'll turn in my resignation. And it was very stressful. But
But you also never took sick day. He
yeah, I had
doesn't
never,
ever
I had, like 500
accumulated,
sick
yeah.
days. I had never taken a sick day. So I fortunately got to do that. But it was hard because I went back and I had to make up extra time, from I had so many, and it was very difficult. And all my friends we kept in touch. That's a secret. We weren't supposed to keep in touch, but we did. And I know they were, working out, a couple hours a day. And I was lucky if I did it, a few times a week. I would try. I hated running but I would like sign up for a 5K to do with my daughters or something fun. I try to rejoin a 40 and over basketball league, but again, I couldn't do anything close to what I had done on the show with my schedule. But I managed to lose another 50 pounds, which in my mind was miraculous. That was from June to, I think the finale was October, November. And so, yeah, it paled in comparison to what I could have lost if I had quit my job. But with the kind of work schedule I had,
Mm.
because I had the support from my family, my kids would come on, dad, let's go for a run. Let's go play soccer. Or my wife, just being incredible and making sure that we ate healthy. I was able to lose another 50 pounds, but that was sheerly um, because of the support that I had that a lot of my colleagues didn't.
That's amazing. So, Doris, when did you lose your weight?
It's been over the last how many years? 2,
Yeah.
3 years?
And what did you do? Just watch what you were eating, or is there something that you followed?
What did we do?
Well, I think one thing we had gotten a little away from, especially when my kids, moved out, from making every Sunday, I would make a nice brunch or breakfast. We'd sit down, make a menu, and make a shopping list off that menu. And I think when you get into that kind of regimen and then know, okay, this is a day that's crazy. Let's make something extra on Sunday so that day we can heat it up real quick. When we got back on that track, that really helped. And then making lunch for ourselves.
Buying.
And yeah, so my wife just really made us stick to doing that with the menu and the shopping, and then always making lunch for herself so that she wasn't buying, no matter what you make, it's going to be half the calories and buy. I mean, theoretically,
Mm.
it really almost always
It's going to
is.
be cleaner.
Yeah. And then we just started to try to do a little bit more physical activity. That's still a challenge, but doing things with our kids like playing pickleball, I mean, is one, something we've been able to do. It's something that, when you're an old fart like me, you can actually keep up with your kids and do. But I think those are the things. And my wife really forces herself to go to bed when and that's my
Sleep.
biggest Achilles heel is getting an adequate amount of sleep. If you ask me what's really got in the way of me and my weight, it's that. And she says, no, I'm going to sleep. And she does it. And so I'm incredibly proud of her because,
And a little bit of medicine.
but
Let's I actually skipped around a little bit. Let's show a couple pictures of you
okay.
on the show. And then I want to talk about like after the show. And before I even ask you, I don't know if you know my story because I really want to just take the pressure off. After my show, I immediately gained 100 pounds. Like immediately. I had lost 66 pounds so quickly, like in just like 4 months, I think, that my metabolism was just
Mhm.
dead. My hunger cues were way off. Gained 100 pounds. Then through pregnancy, gained even more. I ended up 100 pounds more than I even started. So that's 166 pounds more than my finale rate.
Mhm.
And so then I lost 100 pounds by running and restricting. And then my body started going back up again. And then I had gastric bypass. And then I got sick. And then my body started going up again. And eventually I've landed on I'm 2 years carnivore. But all to say, it hasn't been perfect. And we all have to find what works for us and what we feel is sustainable. And I love that you brought in the food addiction piece. And I want to talk about that. But first, let's show. Here's you and your wife. Beautiful. And let's see here. This has got to be like a starting picture.
Yes.
And this is just one of
Yeah.
is that you? Yep.
Yeah. That's me.
One of wow, 150. Is this you at the finale?
Yes. That's me at the finale. So I
Wow,
actually, so I actually lost,
153 pounds?
yeah, I actually lost 183 because I
The
told you I lost 30
Yes.
pounds before I went on the
You
show
are the
because,
first game player ever to
well, I
on
mean,
Factor Day. I've got, let's see here. I've got, here's your beautiful daughters, your beautiful family.
they look like
And
they're right, thank goodness.
They do. And now you have 4 grandsons?
Three
Three
grandsons, yeah.
grandkids, yeah.
And I will tell you, yeah, it's a total paradigm shift after having 4 daughters, but
Is that them right
actually
there?
yeah, so my second daughter got married in February, and those are my 3 grandsons. They were all the ring bearers,
Mhm.
and I've been very honored. 2 of my daughters are, married. My third daughter's engaged, and they had me officiate their wedding, and, you know, it's such an honor that, you know, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is just how close my family is and how incredibly proud. I mean, everybody's, you know, thinks their kids are the greatest, but I mean,
No, they
you see
don't.
that the
That is
apple
a
doesn't
complete
fall from
blessing.
yeah, it's so funny because, you know, we always joke that we were very strict and very liberal at the same time, and I used to say to my daughter, "Someday you're gonna say your dad's your best friend.
Today is
Today's
not
not that
that day.
day." And, we just
Don't
had them
say
over,
that.
last night. They were all and just we're so blessed that they live all close and they're all close to each other, and they
Mhm.
actually like hanging out with their parents, which is really nice.
Gone.
So anyway,
We
yeah.
invite my dad and my stepmom on all our dates
Oh, that's wonderful.
because I totally respect my dad too. It's such a blessing.
Wonderful.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you lose 183 pounds, and then what?
So so when as soon as I walked off the scale, I think I forgot it was 217, 223. I forgot what it was. I knew that, as you know, that day you
Water.
don't, right. So I knew that wasn't real. So I was
Mhm.
probably around 240 and I felt phenomenal.
And
And
tell us how tall you are.
6'2".
You're
I
tall.
at that weight, I felt I started to run 5 I ran, my first half marathon. I did things that I just never even did when I was thin, and I played baseball in
And that
college.
was because of a
Oh,
contestant,
yeah.
not
So
me.
I had a mini reunion,
Mhm.
like, 4 years later, and one of the contestants said, "Oh, I signed up for the New York City half marathon. I have no one to do it with." And I said, "Oh, I'll do it with you." And my wife's like, "What's this Roadrunner Club thing on our bill?" I said, "Oh, I signed up for a half marathon." She, "Well, what's the farthest you ever ran?" I said, "Oh, I don't know, 6 miles." And she goes, "Well, how long is that?" I said, 13.2. She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know. I'll run as far as I can. I'll walk the rest." She said, "This is New York City. They're not going to keep the roads closed for you. You have to average under a certain miles or they put you on a bus." So
Do they?
anyway,
They pick you up on a bus.
so the bottom line is this other contestant bailed on me, and that weekend she says, "Oh, well, then I guess you don't have to go." I said, "No, I tell my kids you sign up for something, you got to do it." She says, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'll run as far as I can and I'll get on the bus." And but I did it, and I was extremely proud of it. And but anyway, I kept most of my weight off, and for the first let's see, that was 2005. I think about the first 6 years, I think I got up to about maybe 270, 280, but I still felt good. But yes, every year I would probably gain, I mean, I don't know, 6, 10 pounds. I mean, it was catching up to me, but slowly, and I certainly still felt good. I didn't need my CPAP, my sugar, everything was great. So I think I got up somewhere around, I think it was like 280, 290, whatever, but I still felt great. And then what happened is I gave talks all over the country, not just about weight, but about women's health stuff. And
Mhm.
I flew to Vegas, and it was one of those red eye flights. And it was bad turbulence. They didn't let us get up out of our seat. And then I had to fly to North Carolina on one of those 50 passenger planes. This is before they had the rules where, you know, you could sit on the runway for 2 hours. They didn't care about the passengers. And that combination, I developed a massive blood clot in my leg. I got back from the North Carolina and I'm like, oh my God, my leg is so swollen and it hurts. And they missed it the first time I had a blood clot and they didn't pick it up for 2 weeks. And they had to put me in the ICU. They put a guide wire and ultrasound and streptokinase, it's like snake venom, to try to get rid of the clot. And they got rid of the clot, but it destroyed all the vessels in my leg. And I developed something called post thrombotic syndrome. So it feels like my leg is like 2, 3 times bigger than my other one, and it feels like having a weight on your leg the whole like you have a ball and chain. So very quickly, was not able to play basketball anymore, run, and I think psychologically,
Mm.
sleep and exercise have always driven my weight loss. And sleep became a problem very quickly when I got back into my job. But the one thing I was able to still do was exercise, and it crushed me not being able to play sports because when you're playing sports, you don't feel like you know what I mean? I was love playing
Yeah.
with people half my age basketball and then I couldn't run, which I hated, but it was the one thing that, you know, burned a lot of calories and I gained a lot of weight very quickly. So much so that I gained I got up to about 420, 430, much more than my starting weight. Now, granted, before I went on the show, it was about 400, but I think I went up to almost, I think, 440 at one time. And my sleep apnea came back. I developed diabetes. I was really not well. And then I finally decided to go get gastric sleeve surgery. And I went and I had it done. And I felt really good, and I was very perfect patient. I try not to be a hypocrite, so I did everything, they told me. And I got back down to around, I think, 350, but then I plateaued. And for whatever reason, just I never had side effects from the surgery. I mean, I did too well, but it's kept me under the 400 or the three set, but it just kind of plateaued. And that's been, frustrating, because of my blood sugar. That really eliminated that, but I started to regain weight again. And that's when I started using Ozempic. And that has helped me to bring my weight down. But it's not, and in itself, what really has helped is when I have time to sleep and exercise, I can lose literally 20 pounds, 10, 20 pounds in a week or two, because just by doing that, not restricting my eating, it drives my metabolic rate. And I think that's what hurt most of us when we left the show, is we had done so much um, because of the exercise and the calorie restriction, that when we got home, our body just tried to force us back and overshoot even. But for me, not being able to sleep, I don't think people really understand how that lowers your metabolic rate. And not being able to exercise just resets my thermostat so low. It's basically like having a furnace that's not on. I had nothing to burn my calories. And
Yeah.
so being with the lifestyle changes my wife's made, I think when you do something together, I mean, that's the other problem. So many of my fellow contestants went home and they had literally people sabotage, not on purpose, but someone not
Mhm.
in the same, like my wife wasn't in the same place I was with the exercise, but she at least was on the same place with me with eating healthy. And so if it wasn't for my work life, I think, I would have probably been able to maintain, and the blood clot that, but after that, I wasn't able to adapt because I still was working an insane amount of hours and not sleeping healthy. And I think that's the lesson you have to learn, is making that time for yourself. And slowly but surely, I've done that, and it's helped me to lose weight and get healthy again. I'm playing pickleball with my kids. I'm walking 5K. I can't run like because of my leg, but at least I'm making less excuses, and we're eating so much healthier together. And we had all the family over, and just the things we even make when my family's over is just so much healthier. And we try to do physical things together. And so,
So has the Ozempic helped you break that plateau?
yeah, it's helped me a little. The problem is, it's not, I mean, I don't feel that it changes my appetite at all. I mean, I really did that to help keep my sugar down, because
Mhm.
after the surgery, I was no longer technically diabetic, but then slowly it started to creep up
Mm.
again. And so I really did that as a physician. Whatever I would recommend to a patient, I'm going to recommend for myself. So I didn't do it so much for the weight. I did it more for the blood sugar. And because I'm eating healthy and stuff, my all my numbers are excellent, but numbers are just numbers. It's how you feel. But the one thing, and I never had side effects from the medicine, maybe I wish I had, because I don't feel that it does anything for my appetite. What really does is eating, when I eat a big salad, or if I fill up on water or salad before a meal, I mean, that's what I need to do, and eat slow. My wife and I love hearing about her day. She works with special needs middle school students. I'm so proud of what she does, and she loves to tell me about her. She doesn't want to hear about patients, and especially doing gynecology. No one wants to hear about that stuff. Um, but I love hearing about her day, and I find that when we eat slower, and like I said, we make meals together. That makes all the difference in the world.
Doris, did you try the Ozempic too?
I did not. What did I
Yeah,
started with what was
with Wegovy.
no, success.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
started with that, and that was daily, and then Wegovy, once a week, and that helped a lot too.
But but I think her life, I mean, I think that's the problem. And I see this with patients. You had gastric bypass. Patients who think that the surgery is their cure are destined to fail. I've seen so many patients regain their weight. The patients who make those lifestyle changes and start act before the surgery and know the surgery is a tool
Mm.
tend to do much better. And also when they have something of a wake up call, like they develop diabetes or a some medical condition that makes them realize they have to do something more drastic. But those of them who develop and have the family support do better than those who don't. And the same thing with the medication. The medication doesn't make you eat any healthier, right?
Mhm.
I mean, you can be nauseous and have constipation and all the side effects and still eat crap, right? I mean, it's not designed to change. So, but my patients who do those things and then need that to help facilitate their what tend to do better than those who think, oh, I just take this needle, take this medicine, and I can go out and still eat all the, those patients don't tend to have the same success. And I think what's helped both of us is that we've made those lifestyle
Yeah,
changes.
definitely.
I mean, that's why
Mhm.
the two of us have lost so much weight and why we just got our lab work. We actually just went to the cardio. I mean, again, I tried, got all our screening tests done and we're doing so well. And playing sports with our kids is because we made those lifestyle changes that helps the medicine to work better.
I completely agree. And I love that. Now, most of my audience is very meat heavy, which is very satiating. And they use it's a tool too for some of the same things. But if anybody wants more information on the healing benefits of some of these peptide medications, you can go to Dr. Stephanie Rimka. You can go to Dr. Tina Moore. There's quite a few on Mind Pump. And really, if you just search in YouTube, there's quite a bit on the healing benefits of the work happening behind the peptide medication. But we all agree you got to make the lifestyle changes or you're just going to
Oh, yeah.
lose muscle and you're just going to gain it back.
And I'll tell you the one. I mean, if I should have brought you a sample of when we make a menu for the week. It is very meat heavy. I will.
I would love
We're
that.
very proud.
He def
Yeah, I kept saying we got to do, but we try to eat more fish and we do make some vegetarian, but we eat a lot of meat. And I think to me, it's just I spend the extra. It's treating yourself to the 93% ground beef. It's treating yourself to the 98%, fat-free ground chicken. It's treating yourself to the leaner cuts of meat that's made, I think helps us. And also it's the portions and the things that we have.
Mm.
Like we have our burgers without bun. We don't have buns with our
Without
burgers.
buns. Yeah.
To me, we don't miss it. And a lot of like little things like that we do. If we make tortillas, we use 50 calorie, whole wheat tortillas instead of these 140. It just doesn't taste different. And a lot of things we found that we can substitute without feeling like it's a difference. And still have a lot of volume. But yeah, so we definitely are carnivores. So maybe
I really, if I could pick, like my kids, I feed them whole foods. If I could pick a nationwide diet, it would be whole foods for
yeah,
sure.
I mean, we like I buy a lot of lettuce, a lot of salad, and I like to cut it up. I mean, it takes more time. We love avocados. It takes time, but it's worth the and that I think is so over the last few years we got back to doing that. I mean, I love, my hours are different. We don't always get home at the same time, so some days we can't, but when we cook together, it's just fun. I give her the hard, she does the avocados. I give her the harder stuff, but it's an investment. But what we do is we try to make for a few days, like with the lettuce, and put it in. Then it's more of an investment in the time than and you still can eat healthy. But you're right. I mean, that's what we try to do is eat more of the whole foods. But for some people, they just don't have. It's finding ways when they don't have the time to do that, and that's what we try to do.
Yes. Okay. So if you could give 3 tips to lifelong health and happiness, what would they be?
Number one, and I say this especially to parents, it is not selfish to make time for yourself. Because if you don't make time for yourself, you can't be a role model to others. And it is okay to say to your kids, we're not going to go to this fast food restaurant or this today because we're going to eat healthier. Or I can't take you to X because I have a date to go exercise. What you do is when you include your family in that, and that is what I did. I hated running. So what did I do? I signed my kids up for 5Ks and we made a bet whoever lost had to do the dishes for 2 weeks. Or we made it fun,
Yeah,
Uh,
you
or we
always
put
lost.
I always lost.
The
They love that. But I like every Sunday they knew they I would make a list, we tear it into four and they'd go shopping with me. So they learned how to
And they help
by and
prepare
they
the
help
meals.
yeah, so
That's
one is
huge,
making time for yourself. Two, if you
including
involve
them.
your kids in
Agree.
make so they were involved with making the food, I mean, making the menu. So when they said, "Well, I don't like that," I said, "Well, the next day there's something your sister doesn't like." We didn't make two different dinners. Parents
Yeah.
decide what to make, your kids decide whether to eat it or not. We never forced them to eat it, but they knew that's what we're making. You don't want it, you can make something yourself, but that's what we're having. So they were invested in making the menu. They were invested in buying the food, not with their money, but they came shopping. And they were invested in making the food. And what we
Helping.
found is they tended to be more likely to eat the food. So I think one is making time for yourself. Take your cell phone, the calendar, carve out 3 me days, half hour. Start with that and then work from there and make it as an appointment. So it is sacred. Number two is involve your family because if you say, well, my kids are all thin, you know, they can have their snacks and it's destined to fail. If you don't get, I mean, my kids, they all bought in. I mean, I have to be honest, they didn't give me a lot of resistance. I'm sure it's not always going to be that easy for others, but you got to get everybody on the same page. And I think doing it as a family, getting everybody is going to make it better. I think those are the two biggest. If I had it, what's a third thing you think?
Sleep.
Oh, yes. Well, never underestimate the importance of sleep. It is, I even as a physician forget to ask my patients when they ask me for sleep medicine, then I know. But I've gotten better at unsolicited asking. It's amazing how poor most of our sleep habits are.
Mhm.
You cannot lose. It's just not going to be possible to sustain weight loss if you don't get adequate sleep. And yeah, I think thank you for helping me because that has been my continued, what is it, Don Quixote quest, I guess, the impossible dream to get enough dream sleep because of my work schedule. And my wife is all on me on that. And that probably has been my biggest, and I don't blame the show for that, but, I think respecting the importance of that. And I think we now know more about how sleep's important for your heart health and other things as well. So
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing your success, your strength, your hope. I really appreciate that you gave me this opportunity to tell your story. So,
Thanks for
uh,
having us
yeah,
on.
thank you. And like I said, if I had to do it over again, I would. I know people have had different experiences and I respect that, but I'm blessed that I had that opportunity.
Life,
I
you know
really
that.
did.
It really
I
did.
really did. Even though I regained weight and stuff, I don't know that I would have been here. And
Agreed.
blessed to have my BFF and soulmate and my kids to support me.
Well,
And I just want to give out to all my fellow season 2 contestants. I was very blessed to have really a
and
wonderful
how
group.
many next year, it's gonna be how many
Yeah,
years?
it's
It's
actually
gonna
be
be
20. Yeah, we're going to try to do a reunion
20
next summer.
years.
But all my fellow Biggest Loser alumni, I mean, so many. I don't get on. I go so rarely on Facebook, but when I've gone on, just wonderful. When I post something and just to see that wonderful support from everyone and any opportunity if they're in Sun Fun, New Jersey, please come
Mhm.
visit. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to share our story because I may be different than others, but hopefully somebody might benefit from hearing our story.
I agree. Well, if you guys like this content, please like, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned for some more interviews. Bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Take care.